Good evening from Aylesbury. It's just gone 9 on a Monday evening. I have to remind myself, but I have just been to my uncle's having pizza, so that does help cement the fact that it's Monday evening. So I'm delighted with it. We have a full house this evening, and we had an almost full house morning this morning. So it's brilliant that so many people want to talk about plotting versus pantsing. And we will explain that. I did this morning, but it will all become clear because we do have a mixture of plotters and pantsers. So I'm going to hand over to Helen, AA Abbott, who's going to introduce herself in true AA style and explain whether she is a plotter or a pantser. And then we will go through our speakers and then talk about plotting versus pantsing. Thank you.
Hello, I'm AA Abbott, also known as Helen. I write psychological thrillers about women finding strength in the face of danger. I was thrilled to be part of the first Self-Pub Fest online, and I'm even more delighted and somewhat gobsmacked to be invited back. Hello again. I am a plotter. I love plotting my books, and I use software called Plotter as well. That's spelled Plottr for anyone who's interested.
A modern day Toys R Us type plotter, where they leave it like Fiverr. Oh no, Fiverr's got an extra R. Anyway, yes, for your plotter.
It's super easy to use. So I'm a plotter who swears by Plotter.
Thank you. Alan, next.
Okay, hi. Thanks for inviting me, Morgan. I know I was supposed to be here this morning.
You're very welcome.
And I kind of messed it up with work and stuff.
Well, no, you are the reason that we have a part B. So it's great because we would have gone over the 6 anyway if we'd.
Okay. I think you're being humble. I think you're the reason we have a second session.
Well, I think New Street Authors actually, because most of you know each other already. So it's brilliant.
So I write delusional fantasy. So that is where you have a main character where you're kind of an unreliable narrator. So you're not really sure if the events are happening or fantastical events are happening to the main character are actually happening or whether they're part of some sort of psychosis or delusion. I was amazed to hear that Helen was a plotter because I think just before we were going through multiple cameras and multiple lights. So I would have bet money you were a pantser, but I'm not a plotter. I am a 100% pantser.
Okay, thank you, David.
Well, my next.
You are next. Yes.
I'm not sure whether you're doing alphabetical order by first name or last name.
Oh, first name.
Yeah, I too must thank you for letting me have a second chance because it was too early.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome.
I have tried every single system going. So I've written a book pantsing. I've written books by plotting to a ridiculous extent. I've tried one of Agatha Christie's methods, but I'm a puzzler, which is the third type that nobody mentions. And a puzzler is somebody who writes things randomly. This scene here, that scene there, or write this bit, which has got its advantages because you write what you're inspired to write, but then you spend most of your time trying to puzzle all of the various bits and scenes together to make it coherent.
We're getting a bit of interference from somewhere. Not terribly sure. It sounds a little paper. I don't know. Anyway, hopefully it will go.
So that's me. I'm a puzzler.
Okay. Yeah, Donna, good evening. A very last minute welcome guest dragged in from the chat room. So it's lovely to see you.
You come to watch and then end up taking part, but that's fine.
That's very true. You know me. I'll always drag you into these things.
Yeah. Well, I'm willing. I was here, so it's fine. My name is Donna, and I write police procedurals and horror short stories. And I am very much a pantser, 100% absolute pantser.
Most people are. Most people, plotters are, because I've interviewed. I keep saying around 100, around 700. I should look. It's not that difficult to look and see how many I've interviewed. 700 and something authors on my blog, and I'd say 95% are pantsers.
Really?
So that leaves Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan. That leaves Ryan.
Good
In,
evening.
in my other life, before I was Ryan, I used to be a business analyst. Now, what they used to say in business analysts is get the big picture right and don't sweat the small stuff.
Mm,
So these days, I get the big picture right and don't sweat the small stuff, which broadly speaking means I'm a plotter
right.
until I get bored with it. And then I start pantsing the bits in the middle. Nobody needs to know who murders who until you need to murder somebody.
Mm,
So I'm a plotter. I write crime fiction, British detective crime fiction, and I write international adventure thrillers. And so sometimes it's better not to know what's going to happen
mm,
because your characters will tell you what's going to happen.
mm.
And sometimes you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, grab your phone and quickly write down what Aidan Beckett said in the night because
Right.
it's important the next day when you start writing it.
Absolutely. Because will we
Yeah.
remember in the morning if we don't do that?
Absolutely
I
never.
I remember I used to go to a writing group, and it was sort
Mhm.
of part reading. It was
Mhm.
mostly critique, but then it was Sally Spedding, crime writer, and she
Mhm.
would then set a task for the following week, and there'd be some tutorial. She was a teacher as well, so there'd be some tutorial in there. And the first few, that was a Monday night, and the first few Mondays I came home, I was so buzzing with ideas, and I'd go and walk the dog, and I always have notebooks and pens in my pockets, and I'd go to bed and ping idea, switch the light on, write it
Mhm.
down, switch the light off, ping, switch the light on, and it was like I was sending Morse code messages because I lived in a cul-de-sac with a green in the middle,
Mhm.
and it was like I was sending
Mhm.
Morse code messages to people on the green.
It
Um,
Yeah.
invest in a pen that lights up. I've got a pen that lights up at the end.
oh yes,
I've only got to click the pen, and there's enough light for me to scribble in the notebook, and then click it off.
right. So
Who
do you?
indoors wears a mask at night, so all I need to do is just open my phone anyway.
Oh yeah, it's a good idea.
Good girl.
Tim sleeps like they're dead, so pointing that way because our bedroom's that way.
Yeah.
But so I'm Morgan Bailey. I write crime fiction, women's fiction, books about writing, and I say I'm a plantser. So I get an idea. I have some vague framework, because I have learned over writing several books that I have changed in the fact that if we were talking about this morning about what we do when we get to a point where we don't know what's going to happen next. I write more here, and then I write later bits. And I found over writing several novels, novellas, that I stop more if I don't at least have some framework. I stop more often because I've run out of that bit and I have to go on to another bit. But it does mean that if I have lots of more here, once I finish the first draft, I can then go back and fill in the gaps because I've got A, M, P, Z. I can then fill in the gaps in between.
Mhm.
So Helen, you're an avid plotter from the word go. Do you find, presumably you've got your framework, however structured on plotter. Presumably the characters take over. John was saying this morning that he has Billy behind him speaking to him. Do you find the same with yours, that you do go off that the characters take over and go off in different directions from where
Yes,
you
of
plan?
course.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. A plot isn't cast in tablets of stone. If you like, it's the skeleton of the story. But when you flesh it out, you might find that bits of it are fatter or thinner than you expected.
Yeah. And isn't that the fun bit, though? You getting the what we call discovery writing, where you do get these times where there are things that surprise you, your characters surprise you, or your brain
They
surprises
do.
you.
Yeah, they do. I think the plotters software, sorry to keep going on about that, they're not paying me or anything. And it's particularly good because it enables you, when you put a scene together, just to pull into that scene the characters and location and any other notes that you want. So you can set up quite a useful Bible of information and just pull in the different bits very quickly. And I do spend quite a lot of time with the characters. I've got maybe a couple of sheets of A4 on the half a dozen more important characters and a few notes on the others, and that helps me work out how they interact. So the plot will flex and change as it goes, just because, like you say, that the characters spark off each other and different things might happen.
And you write series and standalones, don't you?
I've written the series in the past, but I like writing standalones, so that's what I write now.
Okay.
And the reason that I plot, just to be clear, is because I did try pantsing it the very first time, and actually turning, I don't know how many thousand words I'd done, probably about 50,000 words. Turning that, when I had no idea what was going to happen, into a structured book was such a painful experience.
Right.
I think I cut about 30,000 words, wrote another 40,000 or something.
Wow.
I was happy with the outcome, but I wasn't happy with the process. Too much like hard work.
And Ryan, you're a plotter as well. So you have UK books and home books and international thrillers. Do you find your plotting varies between one series and another, or does the location not really impact it?
The location doesn't impact it, but the style of writing. My Aidan Beckett character is always directional. He's going towards something all the time, so that kind of steers the plot in a certain direction. I know where it's going. It's like the Basil Fawlty effect. You know, if you give him a spade, he's going to keep digging.
Right.
And Aidan Beckett is very much the same thing. Everything he does has an impact on the next thing that's going to happen, and the next thing that's going to happen. Whereas with the police procedural, I've read some W.J. Burley just recently, and he's the same with Wycliffe. How Wycliffe bumbles around talking to people, getting ideas, and there's a lot of disconnect in what happens until all of a sudden it starts to mold itself into something real towards the end.
Right.
So the detective ones work like that, and I'm halfway through number 8 now, and it's just a mess because I'm waiting to bring together the various different threads that are going to push them in a certain direction.
Okay. And do you find doing, I mean, you and Donna, writing police procedurals, that you've got a framework there already because you've got within certain rules? You obviously have to get your facts right if you're using a genuine system.
I find that, yes, I need to know those things. I've got all sorts of stuff on the computer that's behind you that will advise me on that. I've got sheets on how investigating teams work, and I need to know that. But more than anything, you need to know the psychology of your victims and your psychology of your killers. And more than anything, you need to know the psychology of the police. The two police officers I use, Daly and Whetstone, have very different personalities, and so psychologically, the way the murders unfold affects the way they unfold. And over 3 or 4 books, they've become very damaged from it.
Right.
So yeah, I do obey the procedural as much as I can, but I think for me, I don't want it to get in the way of the story.
No, exactly. Donna, with you because you write horror short stories and your police procedural novels, do you find there must be some I guess framework to some extent, because once you've got the idea, even if you're not writing any plot down, you have, not necessarily so much with the short stories, but certainly with the novel, because you read prolifically. You're a book reviewer as well. So whether that helps have a sort of almost an internal framework, internal plot, not necessarily for your book, but the kind of arc that you've got to stick to within your books.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's sort of, just completely, I'm unaware of it, but yeah, just by reading so much, I sort of know how a book should go. So yeah, I've never studied. I've never, literally just by reading, I've sort of picked up how to get the story to flow and stuff. And I had David Mark as a mentor, when I very first started writing, and he said, "You're such a student of crime fiction." He said, "I don't need to tell you because you just do it anyway." So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just by reading.
Yeah. Alan, do you find writing, the style of writing that you do, quite freeing, that you don't have necessarily as much of a structure?
It's exciting because it's a bit like reading a book because I'm not 100% where things are going. I think from the discussions, actually, I might be 5% plotter.
Okay.
But I'll start with an idea, then the tap is fully on, and then at some point somewhere, I might have a vague idea of where it's going, but no idea how it's going to get there. So driving in the fog. So I know I've got to get to Glasgow,
Right.
but I'm driving in the fog and I can only see 5 meters in front of me.
Yeah.
But also there may be a landmark along the way where something pivotal happens to either happens to one of the kind of main characters, or I know in Lucas, for example, I introduced a very main character halfway through the book because when I started, I had no idea this character was going to join, and I had to go back and rewrite sections of the beginning just to make subtle references to that person. Otherwise, it would have seemed really. It wouldn't have read right if I hadn't have made mentions of this person. Who was it was a relative of the absolute protagonist in the story.
Mm.
So if I'd have mentioned them before, someone who basically left home, just disappeared one night and just never came back. If I'd made mention of them, then it would have been a bit jarring them just appearing
Yes.
in the middle of the book.
Yeah. It's a bit
But that's pantsing, that's absolute pantsing because I had no clue that character was going to appear.
right. Yeah, it's a bit like having sort of your cast A to F, and then it was character G comes in the last chapter. It turns out they did it. Just throw the book in the corner. David, as our resident expert, having written books on plotting and pantsing and the craft of creative writing, is there a tip you can give somebody who is starting out on writing? What would work?
I am writing a book on that subject. I've written a book on how to publish,
Mm.
but I am trying to get together something on these very thoughts because I've got an academic interest. For example, I discovered how Agatha Christie plotted her books. I've written a novel using her method. I was just interested to see how that worked. And I think my advice is not to do it that way.
Right.
And it was very, very confusing. I don't know. I mean, I think we're all probably hybrids. The traditional. I was surprised when you said 95% of pantsers. Did you say that?
Yeah. Well, because when I asked the question, are you a plotter or a pantser? I'd say about 9. Most were. Very few were plotters.
I mean, my understanding is that pantsers tend to write character-driven stories that tend to meander slightly, and they're usually women. And
right.
plotters tend to write thrillers, and they're usually men.
Right.
I think each has got an advantage and a disadvantage to it.
Well, the likes of, because I've seen Anne Cleeves being interviewed a few times, and she said that, but obviously she's got the framework of Vera and Shetland, and I think she's done some standalones as well. So she's already got the main characters and their setting and so on, which I think does make life easier. And then she's just got to come up with who the dog walker, which body the dog walker finds, and how long it's been in peat, as to how decayed it is, and so I think,
particularly if people have done a lot of reading, they've internalized these sort of structures, even if they don't know them in a formal sense. So what Donna was saying, I remember teaching some playwriting, and I printed out this person's play such that it was 16 pages, stuck it on the wall, and I said to people, okay, I've just told you what the structure is. This person's written the play not using these structures. Let's identify the plot points, the turning points, all the rest of it. And I put them on a big fountain pen a big marker pen in the right place. And he absolutely had nailed it. At the quarter point, he had a turning point. He had a midpoint, slap bang in the middle. The only thing that was his plot point 2, the big glue near the end, 3/4 mark, was a bit early. No, it was a bit late. That was it, a bit late. And people, when they were criticising his play, said it sort of rambles a bit in the 3rd quarter. and he rushed the ending, and you could see it there, just on the board with a marker pen. But he didn't know the system, but he did know the system because he'd internalized it. He'd read enough stories, seen enough plays, films, and TV. So you have a natural feel for stories, even if you're not aware of it.
Yeah, because we concentrate a lot, don't we, on beginnings and endings? But it's that I was just looking at the date on the 13th of April. They scheduled the saggy middle, so we'll be talking about the saggy middles of us and our novels, and I'm just keeping an eye on the mute, because occasionally I think some of you, a couple of you, have muted by, and I have to let you.
Oh,
unmute.
sorry. There was a dog barking. I didn't know if that was coming through.
Oh, okay, no, that's
why I
fine.
muted myself.
No, if you've unmuted by accident, then, or want me to unmute you, if you've muted by accident, want me to unmute you,
I think they've stopped. It's not me. It's not me barking.
Okay, and that's all right. Well, my dog would be scratching at the door, except I yelled at him before I shut the door, because his bed's normally in here, and but Tim wanted to take him out for a walk before he goes to bed. So there we go. Yes. So Helen, well, how do you find? Because you plot voraciously. How do you find your middles? I mean, this isn't a middle, but it is an area that we do struggle with as authors. The middles of our books, because we tend to concentrate on the beginning, and some authors will know what the beginning and the end is. And I mentioned Anne Cleeves, because she says that obviously at the end they're going to find out who the murderer was, and then once she's worked that out, when she gets to the end, she then goes back and puts in her red herrings and her clues to make it all work. As Alan was saying with his books, he knows there are certain bits he's got to add in to make sense. Are you able to plot your middles as well?
Oh yes, totally. I tend to use the save the cat structure, which I really, really like. And I was a bit skeptical about defined structures to start with. And then I analysed the top 20 psychological thrillers on the market and discovered that something like 18 of them used the save the cat structure. It was quite remarkable. So realising that was really appropriate to the genre, I started to use it. And it does help you make sure that the middle of the book is exciting and has a lot going on.
Right.
What is Save the Cat, by the way? Sorry, maybe I don't know what that is.
It's a plotting structure. It's actually called Save the Cat because your main character is supposed to be sympathetic. So you establish the reader's sympathy for them early on by either having them exist in a really awful situation or having them do something really noble that makes everybody love them. And that could be saving the cat. I think in one of my books, the main character saved a dog. But normally you might not take it quite as literally as that.
But they're all of these systems come from film script writing. In novels, you're supposed to be affected by the muse, live in your garret, and write from the heart. But in the film, it's all about making money. So they've always trying to work out the best scheme to use to write a good script. And it was Joseph Campbell, A Hero with 1,000 Faces, the mono myth, the hero's journey, that started it all off. Save the Cat is another rewritten version of the hero's journey. The hero's journey is quite a dry book. It's one you wouldn't want to read it all the way through. You want to read it and then stop and read something else. But they've all got this basic mono myth that they use.
I was just looking up. I used to remember who the Save the Cat was by, Blake Schneider.
Yeah.
Because I know I can't think of any novels at the time. One of Stephen Booth's books had I can't remember whether it was, I think it was a cat or a dog. It was a pet anyway, that had died of old age, because he had a series of his. They're on TV at the moment. They'll come to me. male and female team detectives, Fry and Cooper and Fry, and he'd a dog had died of old age in one of his books, and he said he had more mail complaining about the fact that he'd killed off a dog or a cat. I can't remember which.
That is so true. That is so true. In the book where the heroine saves the dog, stuff happens later on where it's a bit dicey. There's a fight to the death and the dog is involved. And my son, who was beta reading that book for me, turned to me and said, if you kill that dog, I'm never going to speak to you again.
It's funny, isn't it? We can't kill animals or children, but we can do horrible things to, in my case, former next door neighbours.
So
I'm not even that bothered about children, to be honest. I'm pretty fine with that. Don't touch the animals, but kids.
In Independence Day, there's a big explosion in a tunnel with lots of cars in it, and we're just following the dog. The dog just leaps to its safety, and hundreds and hundreds of people get killed in the tunnel. But we don't care.
But everybody cares about the dog.
Yeah.
I think I killed about 10 cats in my first book.
Oh dear.
That's why I've never read it.
Is that one cat completely and one cat a ninth?
Oh, mathematics.
Oh God.
They have 9 lives,
That is true. No, they didn't. Actually, that's a good point. Maybe one did come back.
What do we think about twists, Donna? Do you write twists in your books?
Well, see, my argument now is: are there as many twists, or are they just reveals? I think this whole twist thing has become very much sort of overused, and actually people are just using reveals. So and a good twist that's done well is brilliant, but they're not always twists. And I think this whole the twist you'll never see coming. Oh, shut up. Let me decide that.
I wouldn't want to know. I wouldn't want to know, because otherwise you're looking out for it, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's I mean, every book now, a twist you'll never see coming. Oh, really? Okay, then sure. And it's a reveal anyway. It's not even a twist. So
a reveal is when new information arrives, isn't it? A twist, I would say, is when the information is in fact wrong, and it gets flipped.
Yeah, and it changes everything. And how you can't do that with every book. And if you're writing a police procedural with the same characters, then there's only so far that you can twist it anyway. Sometimes you just write a book, whereas there's a story, it's not a straight line necessarily, but you can't keep turning everything on its head. You've got to just sometimes write the story and not worry about a twist. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. Helen, do you find when you're using your software that it structures you almost? At certain points you've got to do this and you've got to do that because it tells you?
You can put templates in, but I tend not to use a template. I tend to work with the save the cat structure, as I said, so I suppose that's my own template. And then I basically structure the scenes pretty much chronologically. If I have an idea for a later scene and I'm still working on the earlier ones, I'll probably put it in there, because you can drop in information quite easily into the timeline. I'm probably not explaining it very well, but basically what it does is it gives you a timeline that you can use.
I'll definitely be looking it up when we've not tonight, but tomorrow.
It's just it totally beats putting different kind of sticky labels on the wall, which is what I used to do.
Right. No,
so I tend to use the save the cat, but I've also got other beat sheets that are very much the same, and that they all have some kind of map to the story arc or the narrative of your particular characters, and I just choose the one that's most appropriate. Yes, they've got the chronology in them. They also do silly things like tell you how many % of your book this particular plot point comes through on, or how many pages you must have written by the time you get to it. No, I wouldn't do that.
Right.
As long as it reads properly, as long as it's shaped properly, it's right. My main goal is to lead my reader into a false sense of security if I can.
Okay.
And then find something they don't know.
You want to bamboozle the reader, don't you, in a crime book? But at the same time, you've got to make sure that you don't suddenly present them with a fact that they couldn't have worked out for themselves.
No, it has to be there somewhere. Again, the thing I look for is this thread that goes all the way through the book. So I am writing the main plot, and then I will dress it up. I will, if you like, plait the other plots around it so that the book becomes richer, and my characters are affected by what they've just witnessed, or what they've just seen, or what the investigation is telling them to go down blind alleys, to go up the wrong hill.
I think it's more interesting for the readers that way.
Yeah. I don't want my reader saying, I know all this is noise. I want my reader to say, I don't know whether this is noise. Should I be listening to this, or should I be listening to something else in the book?
David, I was going to say. Carry on. I was going to say, David looks as if he's just about to ask a question. And
something Ryan said about he doesn't worry about where the plot points come. I think they come very naturally. It's Chekhov's gun, really. If you show a gun in your first act, you've got to fire it in the last act. And the act of showing the gun and firing the gun tend to be about the same length. And then in the middle of your story, someone has to have a motivation to use the gun, which is about the same length. And then you have to show them making preparations and loading the gun. So you tend to end up with things in quarters. And it just naturally goes that way.
I think so. That's the beauty of having a beat sheet or an outline, is that it kind of reminds you that the reader is expecting it that way. The reader has expectations of when the book's going to get better or worse, when something's going to happen, even if it's unconscious. And if we can fit into a broad structure that helps them, then that's a good thing.
I'm moving over to trying to persuade people to do plotting. Right. Certainly not puzzling.
Yeah, I can see Donna shaking her head, but the reason that you're shaking your head, Donna, is because you know all this stuff anyway, having read however many books it is.
To have beat sheets and things, it sounds like hell. I wouldn't write it. It would never get written. I can't imagine ever having any kind of... I have to have fingers on keyboard and that's it. Never, ever anything else.
Yeah, but I would suggest you've probably got a beat sheet in your head, in your unconscious.
Possibly, indeed, which is fine. It can stay there.
A piece of paper.
I wouldn't write it. Never.
I think the worst thing that ever happens in writing groups when you're talking about this is someone, usually at the back of the room, will say, "I don't want to write formulaically." Absolute killer that is, because people then chuck the beat sheets and all the rest of it away as if it's worthless.
It's a bit like structured poetry. I had a go. I was chair of a writing group when I lived in Northampton, and we had 1 week was a reading group, another week was writing group, another week was poetry, and I think there was another one. And so I went along to the poetry to support them. Not really interested in writing. Sorry, any poets. Not planning to write. I wouldn't say interested. Not planning to write poetry. So I had in my catalogue of poems, I have one pantoum, one sonnet, one lots of other types of poetry, because I did one for that particular week. We were doing a different form each time. And I think if you're told that you've got to do it a certain way, I think part of us is rebellious to some point. So I think pantsers, all writers, I think, have some form of rebellion in us.
But that rebellion is creative. And if you've got a structure you're fighting against, that's where the creativity comes.
If you've got a structure that you like and you're working with, what's the harm
absolutely.
in that?
Yes. See, I had a go at a script once for script frenzy. It was part of NaNoWriMo, and I did it 1 year. And I liked the idea of it because I love dialogue. And so I'm looking forward to the dialogue versus description, another conversation, another Monday. And so I love dialogue. So I like the idea of it being the bulk of it being dialogue. But I found, because I had to put the name and then a bit of stage direction, and because there was this structure of the format of it, that it was distracting me from just simply writing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something you get used to. I used to write all the plays, so the play layout was very natural to me. After a while, I found it quite awkward trying to do something else.
To be honest, I like conversations like this, where it turns out we're all doing something completely different, and we're all doing something that works for us. And the people that wind me up the most at writing groups, and this has happened, are the people that say there is one way of doing it. There is one version of the truth, which is invariably theirs.
David.
Oh, yeah, yes, it's my truth. You should do it my way. Absolutely, no question about it.
I think the interesting thing is that we've all specified slightly different ways of doing pretty much the same thing, and we get pretty much the same result. So there must be some thread of consciousness between all of these different ways of doing it that leads us in the correct direction.
Well, I think if we've all written, I mean, if we've all read, and we've read ferociously over the years, then in our brains, in our subconscious, we know it's start, middle, and end. And obviously things happen before then, but we know what hasn't worked.
You're forced by the way in which stories work. In Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, there's a thing called a call to adventure. The hero has to have a call to adventure. When you think about it, if you took the call to adventure out, nothing would happen. There would be no story.
Yeah.
You can't not have a call to adventure in a story. You know, James Bond sits in the casino drinking his martini, shaken not stirred.
Shaken not stirred, yeah.
And he will stay there forever until he gets the call to adventure. You know, until M sends him a little message in his watch. Yeah. Until the call to adventure happens, there is no story.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, it's like they say put your character up a tree and throw rocks at them, and then it's how they get down. And it's the motivation. John Lynch was talking earlier on about his character, because he converts, he gets sent a script for a book, and he has to write the book of the film. And so he has a formula that he has to stick to, but there is freedom. So he said he writes notes, although he's a pantser for his own, for his fiction. For these books, he writes notes on the characters and their motivation. And so it is, isn't it? It's like Liam Neeson with his set of skills. When he's in the first Taken film, his daughter is kidnapped, and his motivation is to get her back.
Well, take your example. You put your character up a tree, they're going to stay in the tree forever. The call to, and then you throw rocks at them. And if I label that the call to adventure, that is just a language to enable us to talk about your story and say, is your call to adventure good enough? It's like a checklist after the event almost. You know, did you throw enough rocks at your hero in the tree? Yeah. That's the question you could ask by saying, does your call to adventure work?
Sounds like the plot of Flatliners, actually. That one.
Sorry?
Anybody remembers that film, The Plot of Flatliners, if you haven't seen that for a long time?
Was that Julia Roberts?
Yeah, pivotal on someone being up a tree and someone throwing rocks.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. I think the thing I've learned from this, actually, which is great to learn stuff from stuff like this, is actually, I think probably myself and Donna can comment, but I think we're unconscious plotters, or subconscious plotters, which way is the right word.
Yeah,
and it's happening in the background, which is kind of nice because it's a kind of a surprise for us, but it must be happening because I don't go through major rewrites. Everyone who's in my books, or the way the plots go, you kind of realize, well, that character is there for this reason. You don't really understand at the start when you write them in why they're there, and then it becomes obvious later on why they're there. And I've never had a place where I've had to go after write that character because actually they're redundant.
Right.
Everyone has a place, and everyone actually adds to what happens in that story.
Do you find, Alan, being a writer, and I'll ask the same question of all of you, do you find being a writer that it's more difficult reading because you pick. But when you're watching a film and in theory switching off, just enjoying the film, you find you're learning what works for you and what doesn't work for you by watching somebody else's work or reading somebody else's work. Because if something really annoys you, because I know a few writers who've started, somebody, I can't remember who it was the other day, in one of these recent ones, where they said, I think it was Alison Morton actually, who said that she became a writer because she and her husband went to watch the film that was based on a book, and it was so bad that her husband said, well, you should write something, because she was complaining about how bad it was. And he said, well, you write something better then. And that started her on her journey.
I think in my books, I think I'm influenced a lot by films actually. And I guess on the positive side, I think one of the characters in Midas was inspired by the Niffler in Fantastic Beasts, which is great because that actually was the kernel of the idea of the book. But then I'm also absolutely petrified about watching some things, and I think and a lot of the time I'm kind of confirmed that I should have been scared because one of the things when I wrote Valhalla, one of the things I actively avoided because it's about gods in the modern world. One thing I actively avoided watching or reading was American Gods, and I'm so pleased I didn't watch it because it would have completely
really?
frozen me.
Right.
Because I would have watched it and then I would have second guessed every single thing I'd have written, thinking I was, getting that from that story. So I'm glad. So I'm kind of like, there's inspiration from films, but at the same time, I'm also petrified of watching or reading certain things in case it completely inhibits what I'm about to write. So yeah, I'm kind of
Have you
in all
seen it?
round frightened at the same time.
Have you seen them since then?
Have I seen?
American Gods.
I'm halfway through the second series
Okay, they're brilliant,
and
aren't they?
enjoying it loads.
Yeah.
But
I have
there
the
are
same.
bits where, yeah.
I had the same experience with Terry Pratchett books.
Okay.
That I started writing with a friend back in university, and someone said, "Oh, what you're doing is very like Terry Pratchett." It was his very first book, Terry Pratchett's book. And I opened a random page and thought, "Oh, there's Death. That would be a good character for our book." No, I could never look at this again. I put it down. We've only just published that book after 42 years of writing it.
Wow.
So I can now read Terry Pratchett. Yeah.
There are some people who won't. There are some people who won't even read the same genre that they're writing. If they're writing a crime novel, they won't read a crime novel in case I don't have a good enough memory to plagiarize anything. Because I read it and the next day it's like you go to the film. We went to the cinema yesterday. What did we go and see? Literally in one side, out the other side.
The interesting thing from my point of view is we've talked about beat sheets where they have certain plot mechanisms at various points, and I'll be just sit on the sofa and Val will be sitting there and we'll be watching something and I'll say, yeah, all is lost.
Right.
Dark Night of the Soul.
Yeah.
You wait, he's just about to gather a new team.
I do that.
Because they're all exactly the same.
Yeah, it's very irritating.
Yeah. I'm a very irritating person, yeah.
You know how it works. To come back to your question, if you read something that's good, you should be influenced by it, obviously. If you're watching something that's bad, then the question you ask yourself is, how would I have done that?
Yeah.
That could often be the trigger for doing it properly.
It's like we want constructive criticism, don't we? We don't, if we're sending our books out to beta readers, we don't want them to say, yes, it would be lovely for them to say, oh, I really enjoyed it. But we need to know what doesn't work. So if we know what doesn't work for us when we watch something or read somebody else's work, it's going to help us. I used to
sit with my partner on a Sunday lunchtime, and we'd go through the previous day's episode of Doctor Who and fix it in our conversation.
Right. Donna, you're as an avid reader, do you find it helps or hinders your either your reading as a writer or your writer as a reader?
I think I know that I'm reading a really, really good book if I'm not paying any attention to anything about the structure. You know, if I'm literally just completely hooked in the story, then I know that that's a good book because I'm too busy reading and trying to, you know, follow what's going on and stuff. So I know that it's not quite such a good book if I can pick things up. So yeah, and yeah, you do read differently when you're a writer. I think you can't help it. So yeah, it definitely changed. But I try not to. I try not to, you know, read critically. Just try and read, but you can't help it sometimes.
No.
This is really comes back to my point about I don't want to write formulaically as an absolute curse for writers who say that. Because I used to go and see plays, used to do a lot of plays, and every so often I would look at the lighting rig and go, oh, yeah, they always use Bastard Orange because they like the name. That's always the colour they use. I look at the writing rig because I was interested in. No, I wasn't. I disconnected from the play. A play I was interested in and it held my attention. I had no idea what the lighting rig was. And the same goes with films. You know, people go out and say, oh, that was awfully formulaic.
Right.
No, what they mean is that was bad. They're all formulaic. The one that really holds your attention, that's still formulaic. It's an awful, unhelpful word for that. Just, yeah, I would beat it out of writers starting out.
To answer your question as well, I absolutely love reading. I read for pleasure. I might occasionally think, oh, how annoying they've repeated a word there, but mostly I'm reading for the joyful experience of doing so. And
we'll go back round there. So Helen, David, Ryan, Donna, Alan. What do you read for pleasure? Do you read the similar things to your writing, or a variety, Helen?
A variety, but it is skewed towards psychological thrillers. I also enjoy character-led fantasy. I think psychological thrillers tend to be more at the character-led end of the crime fiction spectrum, and I really like books where I can just identify with the characters and get stuck into reading. I can name names, but there'd be hundreds of them.
Okay. Well, I think out of character, setting and plot, which we're going to be characters next Monday and then settings the following Monday and plots the following Monday. For me, I think it's all about the characters. If you had to say one, yes, you need a plot. Yes, it's lovely when you have a really interesting setting. But if you don't care what happens to the character, so for me, it's all about character. David, what do you read for pleasure?
I read all over the place, and I write all that. I'm an eclectic writer, so I've done science fiction, fantasy, cozy mysteries, comedies, samurai Japan. So, you know, if you read something serious, you kind of want to break, and you read something humorous. If you read a lot of humorous books, you think, oh, I could do something a bit more serious. So yeah, it's all over the place. What people recommend, really.
Okay. So
and I'm an editor now. I do editing, so things arrive and I have to read them.
See, the fact that I'm an editor, that's my day job, kills my, I wouldn't say, it sounds dramatic to say kills my love of reading, but I've always been a huge short story fan. So I think I have an order in for Alan's collection because you've got collection short stories, haven't you, Alan?
No, just individual short story, a couple of short stories.
Okay.
On Amazon.
Okay. Yeah, there was I can't remember, someone who's coming in April. They're bringing I think it's Sean bringing his collection of short stories, and so that's what I tend to read for pleasure, because then they're over. They're my favourite format, and then they're over by the time I've got too picky.
The last book I read, the editor part of my brain switched on. And I was thinking this should be cut. That's a repeated paragraph, etc., etc. The book I'm reading at the moment, that hasn't happened at all. Because
that's a sign of a good book.
Yeah. I wouldn't say the previous book was a bad book, but it could have done with another draft. I think that's, if you're bored by something, you start to look for the lighting rig. So you'll spot things. Whereas if you're not bored, if you're engaged in it, the time just goes, doesn't it?
And do you start? I should have asked this. We'll start Helen again. Another quick add on to this question. If how many pages in would you give a book before you go, no, I can't waste any more time? Or are you one of these rare, I don't know how rare people who will, once you've started, you've got to finish?
Well, the older I've got, the less inclined I am to finish a book that I don't like. I'll just put that marker down. It totally varies. Yeah. Listen, if a book's really badly written with loads of typos and stuff, I would give up after 2 pages. I would just not waste my time on it. But otherwise, I'd probably give it a reasonable run, 40 or 50.
Okay. Yeah.
I was brought up to eat all my vegetables, so I would finish a book no matter what.
You keep going.
But I have started to change. There are books on my shelf that still got the bookmark in them, and I will finish them one day. But I do remember lying in bed reading a book. I was so incensed by it that I flung it across the room. And as soon as it left my hand, I realised where it was going, straight towards the mirror. I missed the mirror, thank goodness. But it was that moment of, yeah.
Oh dear.
That's a rarity. Normally I finish.
Ryan, what do you read for pleasure, and how long do you give a book before you call it a day?
I've always been a very big crime fiction guy. All the Peter Jameses. I quite like the Peter Jameses. I wouldn't write them in the same way that Peter James does.
Okay.
If I were writing them myself, I would use a different style of writing. But then again, he's made more money than me, so why should I criticise?
Well, and he's a nice guy, and he's a really nice guy.
Yeah, I've met him once.
Yeah,
he is a very nice guy.
Yeah. I say that Peter James is one of the few people who make me feel really common because he's so frightfully.
yes, Charthouse and all that. Yeah, so I've read a lot of his books. I've read a lot of, as I say, W.J. Burley, the Wycliffe books, and I went to Hay on Wye, he says, name dropping the other day, and bought some Niego Marsh ones and some Agatha Christie ones. I read an Agatha Christie fairly quickly and thought, this is rubbish, and I could only put it down to the fact that it had been changed dramatically to get it into the slim format that it was, because usually they're fairly good. I've read them before and they're very good.
I'm an Agatha Christie fan. How dare you say one of her books was bad?
Well, like I say, I think it was the adaptation of it that was bad rather than the book itself.
An adaptation?
Yes.
Why wasn't it just a book?
It couldn't possibly be her whole book because it's really, really, really thin, and I don't think it's the whole book. Anyway, so I generally don't read all the way through. If I don't like it, 60, 70 pages in, 50 pages in, whenever I get bored, I will put it on the TBR up there. When it's somebody I know, I read it all the way through regardless.
Okay.
Because it's helpful to be able to give constructive criticism. I never, ever give destructive criticism. So I'll read them all the way through and hope people are reading mine all the way through too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's time I read one of yours.
Oh, sorry, what?
It's time I read one of Ryan's.
Because you do know each other, don't you?
I'm trying to read all of New Street Authors' books, but there's so many of us and there's so many books.
Right.
I inflict my books on you by the simple expedient of getting you to beta read them, David.
That's a good idea.
But I realised that I've only ever read not the final draft of your books. I've never read the final finished product.
They're a lot better when they're finished.
Yeah.
Thanks in no small part to the beta readers and the editor. I make a lot of changes.
Thank you.
Donna,
I still blog, so I think that I say this week, it's only Monday. Last week, I think I read Liz Nugent's newest one that I got on NetGalley, and then I've read the self-help book, and then I'm reading a book called 4 Days in History set in 1765 or something. So, my go-to genre is crime and always will be crime or psychological thrillers, whatever. But because I still blog, because I have this pathological inability to say no. If people email me and beg me because I haven't got enough bloggers, then I will usually say, yeah, it's fine, I'll read it. Which means my TBR is definitely going to outlive me. which is also why I don't tend to give books as long as I used to now. I know pretty. I mean, and I was diagnosed last year with ADHD, so I think that's part of the reason as well. If I'm not interested, I discovered this when I was doing my degree as well, when I was trying to relearn chemistry, and my brain was like, no. And I think it's the same with books. But the only one that I'm glad that I've stuck with is Where the Crawdads Sing. You know, a lot of people said that takes ages to get into, and I'm so glad I never gave up on it.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I tend, like, within less than 10 pages, usually I know, and I'm like, nah, there's too many books and not enough time left to read them.
But not only that, is that we want to be writing. I've kind of really, I don't set aside enough time to write, and whatever impacts my time is something I don't want to be doing, is taking time away from what I do want to be doing. So
I did an MA in creative writing, and one of the most important modules from the lecturer's point of view was called Reading into Writing. It was trying to get us to read lots and lots of things critically.
Right.
And their ethos was that you can't be a writer if you're not a reader.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But if
I know people that are, though.
Yeah.
I know authors that are writers that don't read. So it's not a necessity.
No, I think it helps though. It's clear. I'm saying this very generally, that it's clear that not necessarily good writers are avid readers, but I think it helps. But no, you don't have to be a reader. The only novels I read are ones that I edit and pull apart. So reading for pleasure is short story collections.
But you have to have done some of it. You can't make a table if you never look at a table. You've got to
I say I blame Stephen King for me wearing glasses, because I was an avid reader until the editing took over, really. So I was still reading for pleasure back in the day, but now it's kind of, if I spend 9 to 5 editing, do I want to spend 6 till 9 reading the same? It's a bit busman's holiday.
Yeah, but also if you're going to spend the evening reading, you might as well spend the evening editing. Get it out the way.
Yeah. Alan, what do you read for pleasure, and how long do you give a book?
You managed to link the two questions, because I already had an answer, and it was kind of like, I'll read pretty much any genre, but I'm probably a bit harsher than everyone else. I'll only give it the first page. If it hasn't got me in the first page, I put it down. And I kind of put that down to, obviously when I bought books originally, I'd walk into a library or a shop and I would pick one up, and I would, maybe the cover would attract you to begin with, but then I'd read the first page. If that first page didn't grab me, put it down. And I still kind of hold to that, and I think Amazon kind of support that, because you can read a sample of books digitally before you. So I kind of hold to that. I think the only times I've broken my own rule was for 1984, because if I didn't know the context of 1984, I'd have put it down, because there's so much just explanation of, I guess, the world and how that society is structured. It's a switch off, to be honest. But I'm glad I stuck with that, because it's an amazing book, and I think everyone should read that book. And Ready Player One was the other one as well. I don't think it was. I watched the film and everyone said you've got to read the book, and actually I was like a bit switched off. I didn't like the author's writing style. I'm glad I persevered, because I really enjoyed the story in the end. But if I didn't have the context and I hadn't watched the film, again, that would have been a book I would have put down. So they're the only two I can think of where I kind of broke my own one-page rule.
Right. There was I was doing a 3-week college course on Kate Atkinson's first 3 books, and her first one, behind which won at the time the Whitbread Award, behind the scenes at the museum, had so many maternal characters as a main character. I mean, it was all her female relatives, and I ended up drawing a family tree. And because I was doing it for college, I then had to read the book. I had to read it a couple of times, and I'm glad I did, but there were so many references to mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers and going back and back and back that I was losing track of which name related to which era. And so I did end up, why there wasn't a family tree in the book, I don't know, but doing that. And it was such a good book by the end of it that I was glad I persevered. But I don't have a lot of toleration. I suppose it depends if you've paid £8.99 for the book, you kind of in a way want to get your money's worth. I mean, Ryan, you're pointing to your physical to be read pile, exactly. Then
all from a charity shop. That was
Okay.
the discussion I had with him. If I could get all his books from a charity shop, then he'd give me a book.
Yeah.
And I've got all of them bar one.
Okay.
So they're 50 pence or £1 each. So it's not a huge investment.
No.
It's more of the intellectual investment of having to read the damn things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the time.
And the time. I'll
Yeah.
never have any time. I'm retired now, so I never have any time.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? How
Yeah.
well I decided late last year that I was going to semi-retire, so I've limited the editing I take to what I write, the crime and women's fiction and non-fiction about writing. And then about within a week, I decided to set up a book festival, which of course takes no time at all to arrange. And then a session and a bit through the 25th of January, I decided then let's have this every single week.
Brilliant.
Here we are.
So it's kind of taken over. Absolutely, it's taken over, and I don't regret it.
I must object to these people saying they retire. If you're a writer, you're a writer. You're a full-time writer.
Exactly. Yes. No, but I mean, for me, my day job is the editing.
Yeah.
I think you're right, David.
From that.
I don't consider myself retired. I consider myself doing a different job.
Some of my fans have worked out this winds me up, and they keep saying, "Dave, now you've retired." I go, "No."
Now you're able to do something you really love doing, because they do say, don't they, that if you find a job you love doing, you don't work a day and another day.
Oh, I still find this hard work.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been doing this full time for 4 or 5 years. I've been writing for about 15, but I find it hard work even now. And when I was working, I used to think that the achievement of work was finishing the job to the required standard, not doing the job.
Yeah.
And I think the same is true of writing now, that I do find it hard work, but I'm glad I do it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a different kind of hard work. The writing industry, I've been in it for 20 years, and it's really not easy, especially as a self-published author. I'm battling with Amazon at the moment, because if you go and look for my name with an E on Amazon, it's been like this for forever. And it says, do you want Morgen Bailey? And you have to click on a tiny link that says, and so I'm having an argument with them, which every now and then I have the same argument with them. And they say, well, unfortunately, it's an automated thing. We can't change it. And I've just got to the point now where I say, Morgen Bailey, there are 3 books that come up. I've got 40 something titles. Surely you can do something about it. So it's working its way up the hierarchy of Amazon for them to take off this stupid thing. Do you mean Morgen Bailey? Here's Morgen Bailey. Click here if you meant Morgen Bailey.
Well, yeah.
I good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My career was in IT, so I feel your pain.
Yeah,
just trying to explain to people how the real world works, and they're talking in C# and JSON code and stuff, and I'm saying no, it doesn't work like that in the real world.
That's a very simple programming fix. They won't do it. That's a management issue.
Yes, that's a management issue. Yes,
exactly.
It's a money issue.
I've just said it's not acceptable. Your answer is not acceptable. And the only other option is if I do Amazon ads, and the only other option is if I do set up keywords for every single book with the right spelling of my name, so that they all come up as sponsored ads. But then it's costing me money for people to click on my own books while searching for me.
Well, it's all about making money.
Absolutely. Yes.
Making money. People make money out of this.
Thousands and thousands and no, not really, to be fair.
We try, don't we?
I looked at my sales and I wish I hadn't.
Oh no, I
money this month.
used to look twice a day and now probably once every couple of weeks.
Oh, I was told very early on, do not look at your sales every day.
Yeah.
You will. It doesn't work.
I do it first thing in the morning because just like D-Ream, things can only get better.
Once a month.
Rubbish.
Very, very rarely.
Mm.
Anyway, we've gone about an hour, so that's brilliant. I'm very grateful that it's Alan's doing that we're here. So I'm very grateful for Alan, and for Helen for allowing us to pinch her from this morning, because she was in the she's a Donna from this morning. She was in the chat room, and I said, are you going to be around at 9 o'clock tonight? So as always, yes, no problem. So thank you very much. And then Ryan was hoodwinked this afternoon, I understand, from I think it's from Helen, David and Lee this afternoon was brought in, and then Donna at the last minute. So thank you, everybody. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun.
This will go up on YouTube in the morning.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan, for
no problem.
Yeah.
No problem at all. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
very much. See you soon.